Just over 10 years ago, my cousin and I were the victims of a violent home invasion here in Durban, South Africa. During that incident, we were robbed and threatened at knife point. And if that incident had not occurred on a day where I had a business meeting and my colleague showed up armed with a gun to look for me when I did not arrive on time, I might not be here making this video today. Then, a few years later, when former President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, was arrested in relation to corruption charges, there were large-scale riots across Durban and KwaZulu-Natal more broadly, during which a mob of about 700 angry Zulus showed up at the end of my street, as well as destroying and looting my local mall. Those riots led to the deaths of hundreds of people and billions of rand in damage, which the local economy never quite recovered from. Now we have the case of the leader of the economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema, who has been found guilty of reckless endangerment and unlawful discharge of a firearm at a political rally a few years ago. But whether or not he goes to prison is a major issue of concern because his supporters in the EFF have threatened violence if that happens. I tell you all of these things as examples to prove that South Africa has no justice system. But let me give you another, just to make it extra clear. In South Africa, which I remind you is one of the most violent places in the world, you are not legally allowed to use lethal force in defense of yourself or another person unless you can prove to a judge's satisfaction in a court of law that you were justified in doing so. If the judge happens to decide that you killed the person who was attacking you, but they did not deserve to die, you yourself then risk a charge of murder. And even if you yourself are not charged with a crime, there have been cases here in South Africa where the families of dead criminals have attempted to sue the victims who defended themselves on the grounds of loss of income. I am talking about this to make the point that there is no fair legal standard in South Africa. There is one standard for politicians and people of influence, and another standard for the rest of us. Because politicians like Jacob Zuma and Julius Malema can go around in public openly calling for the murder of white people in chants, and nothing happens to them. But if a white person is even suspected of being racist, whether they are or not, they stand to have their entire life ruined as well as that of their family. There is no fairness in this country. There is no equality. There is no justice. There is only powerful and weak. That is the circumstance in which we live. If you have power, you can do what you want. If you don't, the powerful can do what they wish to you, and you can't say anything about it. And just by making this video, I'm actually putting myself at risk of punishment by the state because our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, recently publicly announced that he and his administration are looking into ways to use the legal system to punish those who speak out against the government and who bring the reputation of South Africa into disrepute. But nonetheless, I'm going to keep doing this because I care more about the truth than I fear the government. After all, I'm already a white quadriplegic. What more can they do to me? At this point, not even death is particularly frightening, because I have faced it twice already. That doesn't even count the time I was almost hit by a bus, but I count 2 times in which I was nearly killed by violent means. So I'm well aware of how close, as a white South African, I live in proximity to violent death, and literally nothing will stop me from speaking out.